My problem with these cost of living videos is a lot of times they just pull up a random article and they just start reading off, here's the cost of living. All right, check this out. I've been a Phoenix resident for a long time. By long time, I mean 28 years of life. And ever since I was 5, I was paying my own bills. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I actually moved out of my parents' house when I was 17. So I've lived it all. I've lived in a small apartment. I lived in a small house, medium-sized house, suburban house, and even now in a quote-unquote nicer area of town. I've seen all kinds of different payments and whatnot and cost of living. So in today's video, for anyone maybe looking to move into Phoenix or just want to know a little more about the area, I want to make a cost of living in Phoenix, Arizona. And how many times will I say living in this sentence? I don't know. Living. So that way you can get an idea of if you can really afford it here or not. Let's get something out of the way though first. The cost of living is increasing. Why is it increasing? Well, it's because there's a huge amount of people moving into the state right now. So there is this bias right now that people have that they get so shocked when I tell them it's not true anymore, that Phoenix is cheap. You can move to Phoenix and get a cheap house. That's no longer the That's no longer the case. Is it still cheaper? Yes. You know, you can buy something in the 300s, and is that considered cheap to maybe other parts of the country? Yes, but this idea... Hi. Huh? Good job. Good job. That's my daughter telling me she peed. That's awesome. But this idea that you can now buy a house in Phoenix for $200,000, $150,000 is gone. Okay, you're too late. You missed that party. You're going to have to spend a little more. But the good news is that even though the house prices are expensive here, our property taxes are still pretty cheap. So a $300,000 to $350,000 house, if you buy in a house without HOA or it's a little older, might run you $1,300 to $1,500 around there. Now interest rates are going up, so this number might go up slightly, but that's around the range I'm seeing. If you're in the $300 to $400 range, you might be between $1,500 to $2,000, unless you're buying like in a really expensive HOA, etc., etc. So you're not really going over $2,000 unless you're going closer to $500,000, or you're buying in an area with a high HOA and even higher property taxes. So even though it is getting more expensive compared to the last few years, it's still pretty cheap. Now, what are the costs of living here? Well, first of all, let me give you a kind of a breakdown of what the average utilities are. So I don't know if you know this, but we're in a desert. We're defying the gods by creating this city in the middle of the desert. So that means your utilities are going to be on a little higher side, at least for the water. So your water bill will vary depending on your house size. It also will depend if your wife decides to take up a gardening habit where she gets a bunch of house plants and a bunch of plants in the front yard and backyard, and they want to start watering every day. In this case, it might be closer to $100. There's a play going on right now with houseplants and gardening. I don't know if you heard about this. Like literally all over the country, plants are dying at a rapid rate. And the problem is millennial women. They just want to buy houseplants and they just let them die. Sorry, millennial women. It's true. Stop killing the houseplants. Hashtag stop killing the houseplants. So if you're a huge gardener, you like to water your grass and whatnot, $120 maybe if you're watering, in the summer 3 or 4 times a day, $150 at most. If you have a pool, maybe a little more if you fill it up. But really, I usually pay $50 to $120 for a bigger size house, and I was definitely getting way under $100 for a medium sized house for a long time. Power will depend on your efficiency. Okay, so I've lived in older houses where if it's the summertime, your AC is running all day, you're paying $300 to $400 smackaroos. I have my in-laws who live in an older house in Phoenix, and if they have their AC running all day, they're paying close to $600 or $700. Now, whose fault is it? Is it Arizona because you need to run your AC all day? Well, no. I also know some people that live in older parts of town that have updated windows, dual pane windows, that have nicer AC units that are paying close to $300 or $400. So your 3 or 4 months in the summer are going to be expensive because you're going to run your AC almost all day and night. So expect to pay $300 to $600 around there for the power bill for those months. Every other month depends on your habits, okay? If you have a pool, if you don't have a pool, you might have some months you pay $100. Or maybe even 50 or 60 during the winter. If you have a pool, it might be a little more, but our power is relatively cheap here, especially depending on the different programs. Like we have this power card where you can fill in your card. Don't do that. They charge you way more and you think you're saving money. Find the right plan for your best schedule, and it's actually pretty cheap. Gas can be less than $40 if you have it. Internet's kind of crappy here. We have 2 CenturyLink and Cox. They always start nice and cheap, but just like everywhere else, they start going up and doubling and tripling it. If you're ready to fight them, you should pay about $50 to $150 depending on how fast you want your internet speed. And of course, the big one is going to be what rent and mortgage are. So it really depends, right? It's hard for me to find a rental under $1,200 now for a house. Most rentals I'm seeing are between $1,300 to about $2,000, and this is for okay to good areas. Now for a mortgage, it's still definitely about the same, if not a little cheaper, right? So the same house that you would rent for about $1,600 a month, you can probably buy in the area for $1,300 or $1,400 of a monthly payment with the minimum 3 to 5% down payment. The problem is to get into those houses will take more money because of the closing costs and the seller's market and whatnot. But if you are able to get into a house, your mortgage is still relatively cheap. Average I'm seeing right now is a 2021. $1,400 to $2,000. Anything cheaper than $1,400 is because they put a massive down payment or they're buying like a small condo or townhouse. Yes, we do have townhouses and condos scattered throughout, but we're not really known for that here in Phoenix. So you're not going to really find a lot of those. Of course, you know, your car bills and all everything else. For the first part of my life, like when we lived in a really small house in a not so great area, you know, we got away with surviving with $2,000 to $3,000 a month of minimum, like for groceries and everything. As we've grown, you know, when we lived in a suburban area, which a lot of families live here, I think our bottom line number was $3,000 to $4,000, and that included car payments and groceries and a $1,300 monthly payment. Well, actually, that actually includes my wife is really good with budgeting, so she would put actually budget our savings, right? So that 4,000 included some kind of amount of savings in there. So, and now, you know, being in a more nicer area, I would say my bottom line number is about 4 to 5K, but that's only because we do have 2 car payments. We do have other things. If you live a lot more smarter than I do, you can definitely be within 3 to 4K in a good area. You know, especially if you're good with your debts and you manage your debts pretty well. Your lifestyle will depend on what area of Phoenix you live. So the editor is so graceful to find the best photo of Phoenix he can possibly find and is going to try to keep up with what I'm saying here. If you're on the West Valley, which is essentially, you know, Avondale, Goodyear, Tolleson, Litchfield Park, West Phoenix, all of that, your cost of living is going to be pretty low because this is a more suburban lifestyle, right? This is where I've lived most of my life. You're not going to have a lot of bars or a lot of restaurants here. It's just groceries and school districts. And you're going to find a lot more suburban living there, right? So if you're in the North Phoenix area, North Glendale, which is like Arrowhead, you know, near the Lake Pleasant, that's going to be a little higher living. There's Arrowhead Mall, you know, things are a little more expensive there. There's a lot more restaurants. You know, if you're in the East Valley, Gilbert, Mesa, Chandler, it's going to be a lot more higher because right there, right now it's popping there. There's like, you know, Tempe Marketplace nearby and all kinds of things. And Scottsdale is going to be our little California where it's going to be the most expensive place to live. So if you really think about it, you have to kind of judge of how the nightlife is. The lower the nightlife in the area, the least amount of money it will cost to live around the area. Scottsdale, with the most expensive in my opinion, has nightlife everywhere because it's the place to be at. Your minimum house will cost you at least half a million there, but you're gonna have a higher cost of living there because things are more expensive there. But either way, you could live comfortably, in my opinion, in the Phoenix, Arizona area between 3 to 5K. The hardest part to get into the city is gonna be buying a house because right now, you're not the only one looking into buying here. There's a lot of people buying here. So it's really important that you have your budget in place, not only to qualify for the mortgage payment, but be able to qualify for the potential expenses. Because if you're buying at max ratio, like things are super tight, you're buying already house poor, you're putting yourself in the bad spot. So if you're interested in having that conversation, contact information is below. I also have this great app where you can start looking for houses. So let me know what other videos you guys want to watch in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And of course, I have a general home buying real estate channel if you guys want to check that out as well. So thank you guys. I appreciate y'all. Have a good one.